If this is true, Mercedes could lose everything before the Japanese Grand Prix even starts. Because after 2 dominant races, after complete control in Australia and China, a single detail has triggered chaos inside the paddock. Not a crash. Not a strategy mistake. A movement. A tiny, almost invisible movement that should not exist. And now, Red Bull is pushing hard. Engineers are reviewing footage. Teams are comparing data. And the FIA is being forced to look closer. Because under the rules, only 2 parts of the car can move. Front wing. Rear wing. Nothing else. But what they're seeing doesn't match that. The W17 isn't just fast. It's behaving differently. Smoother. More controlled. Almost like the aerodynamics are adapting in real time. And if that's true, this is not just an advantage. This is a potential game changer for the entire season. We are days away from Suzuka, the most demanding aerodynamic track on the calendar. And if something is hidden inside that Mercedes, this is where it will be exposed. Stay until the end. Because the final detail is the one that explains why teams are no longer just worried. They're furious. At first, it didn't look like a protest. There was no official statement. No public accusation. Nothing you could point to and say, this is it. But inside the garages, everything was already escalating. Because Red Bull didn't just see something unusual. They couldn't explain it. And in Formula 1, that's when things get dangerous. Because when performance has an explanation, teams adapt. They copy. They respond. But when it doesn't, they start asking questions. Serious questions. And that's exactly what began happening after China. Engineers started breaking down every lap from Mercedes. Corner by corner. Input by input. And one thing became very clear. The W17 is not just fast. It behaves differently. Through slow corners, it rotates cleanly. Through medium speed sections, it stays balanced. Through high speed corners, it remains completely stable. No sudden corrections. No visible struggle. Just control. And that consistency is what triggered everything. Because normally, a car has strengths and weaknesses. It might be strong in fast corners. Or dominant in traction zones. But never both, at the same level. Not without compromise. And yet, Mercedes shows no compromise. Which leads to a very uncomfortable conclusion. Either they've built the most complete car on the grid, or they've found something others haven't. And here's where things get even more intense. Because when teams compared data, not just video, they found something even harder to ignore. Mercedes gains time everywhere. Not in one sector. Not in one corner. Everywhere. Small gains. But constant. And constant gains don't come from luck. They come from systems. Which brings everything back to the same question. What kind of system could produce this? Because the front wing behavior is only one piece. The diffuser is another. The energy deployment adds another layer. Individually, they all make sense. But together, they create something that feels unnatural. And that's exactly why Red Bull pushed this further. Not as a complaint, but as pressure. Because if there is even a possibility that something is outside the intent of the rules, you don't wait. You force attention. You force scrutiny. And now, that attention is fully on Mercedes. Every camera angle, every telemetry trace, every aerodynamic response, being analyzed in real time. Because this is no longer about curiosity. It's about timing. We are days away from Suzuka. And if there is something hidden, there is no time left to hide it. Which is why the next phase of this story is where everything stops being speculation and starts becoming evidence. And then, the focus shifted completely. Because video can raise questions. But data exposes answers. And once teams started digging into telemetry, everything became much harder to ignore. Because what Mercedes is doing is not just visible. It's measurable. Every throttle input, every steering angle, every change in load through the corners. All of it tells the same story. The car is too stable. Not slightly better. Not marginally improved. Too stable. Through high-speed corners, where most cars fight the limit, the W17 looks calm. Through direction changes, where balance usually breaks, it stays planted. And that is where engineers start to get uncomfortable. Because stability at that level comes with a cost. It should increase drag. It should hurt straight-line speed. It should create trade-offs. But Mercedes? They don't seem to pay that price. And that's the contradiction. Because the numbers show it clearly. They are not the fastest on the straights. They're actually losing speed compared to rivals. And yet, they gain everything back in the corners. Every single lap. Which means one thing. The efficiency of the car is on another level. And this is where a new theory begins to take shape. Not about illegal parts. Not about hidden mechanisms, but about something far more difficult to detect: interaction. Because what if the advantage is not coming from one component, but from how everything works together? The front wing adjusts. The rear wing follows. The airflow under the car remains stable. The energy system shifts load at the exact right moment. All synchronized. All perfectly timed. And all technically within the rules. But when you combine them, you get something that behaves like active aerodynamics, even if it isn't. And that's the real fear inside the paddock. Because you can protest a part, you can measure a device, but you can't easily challenge a concept. And if this is a concept, then Mercedes hasn't just built a fast car. They've built a new way of understanding the regulations. And that is much harder to stop. But here's where the tension reaches its peak. Because the FIA now has enough information to act. Not publicly, not aggressively, but quietly. Monitoring, comparing, looking for anything that doesn't align with the rules. Because if there is even a small inconsistency, that's all it takes. One anomaly, one unexplained behavior, and everything changes. And now, all of that pressure is heading to one place: Suzuka, where the speed is higher, the loads are heavier, the margins are smaller. If there is any hidden behavior in that Mercedes, it will be pushed to its absolute limit. And under that pressure, systems either hold, or they break. So now, the entire grid is waiting, not just to see who wins, but to finally understand something much more important: whether Mercedes is simply ahead, or whether they've already crossed a line no one else can even see yet. And just when it seemed like everything pointed toward a breakthrough, a different possibility started to emerge. One that changes the entire narrative. Because what if Mercedes isn't bending the rules at all? What if they're simply operating at a level no one else has reached yet? That idea is what's dividing the paddock right now. Because when engineers went deeper into the data, they didn't find anything clearly illegal. No extra signals. No hidden activations. No unexplained commands. Everything traced back to the driver. Everything passed through the standard systems, exactly as the rules require. And that creates a very uncomfortable situation. Because if there is no illegal system, then what are teams actually seeing? Why does the car look like it's adapting? Why does it feel like it's reacting differently? And this is where the final piece of the puzzle starts to take shape: perception. Because at extreme levels of performance, what looks impossible can actually be precision. What looks like automation can actually be timing. And what looks like a hidden system might just be perfect execution. Because think about it. If the front wing response is slightly delayed, but still controlled by the driver, if the energy system shifts load at exactly the right moment, if the airflow under the car remains stable because of design, then what you see from the outside feels unnatural, even if it isn't. And that is the real danger here. Not an illegal part, but a level of optimization so high that it creates suspicion. Because no one expects perfection, especially not in Formula One. But Mercedes? They might be getting closer than anyone else. And that's what makes the situation so explosive. Because if the FIA investigates and finds nothing, then every other team has a serious problem. It means they are not chasing a loophole. They are chasing an idea, a concept, a level of integration they don't yet understand. And that takes time. A lot of time. Time they don't have. Because the season is already moving. Points are already being lost. And Mercedes is already building momentum. But if the FIA does find something, even something small, then everything flips instantly. Because in Formula One, small details lead to massive consequences. A clarification, a directive, a change in interpretation. And suddenly, the advantage disappears. Just like that. Which is why Suzuka is no longer just another race. It's a turning point. Because under maximum pressure, under maximum load, the truth always comes out. Either the car continues to behave the same way, flawless, controlled, untouchable, or something changes. Something small, something subtle, but enough to confirm what teams have been suspecting all along. And that's why no one is relaxed right now. Not Red Bull, not Ferrari, not even Mercedes. Because deep down, everyone knows the same thing. We are about to find out if this is the smartest interpretation of the rules, or the beginning of the next major Formula One controversy. And this is where everything finally comes together. Not in theory, not in speculation, but in what Formula One has always done best. Forcing the truth into the open. Because there is something people forget. Every single car on that grid is constantly monitored. Every signal, every adjustment, every command sent through the system. The FIA sees it all. And if there was a clear illegal device, it would already be flagged. Immediately. That's how strict the system is. Which leads to one final, uncomfortable realization. What if there is nothing illegal to find? Because according to everything available so far, there is no confirmed violation, no hidden actuator, no extra moving component, no system operating outside the regulations. And yet, the performance remains, the dominance remains, the questions remain, which leaves only two possibilities. Either Mercedes has built something that looks illegal, but isn't, or they've discovered a gap so precise, so perfectly executed, that it sits exactly on the edge of what the rules allow. And that edge is where Formula One history is made. Because this has happened before. Teams find something new, something no one else understands, something that forces everyone to react. And by the time others catch up, it's already too late. Championships are decided, legends are created, rules are rewritten, and suddenly, what once looked controversial becomes the new standard. But here's the difference this time. The timing. Because we are not at the end of a season. We are at the beginning. Which means if Mercedes truly has this advantage, there is still time to stop it. Or, there is still time for it to grow even bigger. And that's why Suzuka is not just important. It's decisive. Because after this race, the FIA will have everything they need. More data. More stress conditions. More evidence. Enough to make a decision. And that decision will shape the rest of the season. Either they step in, clarify the rules, limit what Mercedes is doing, or they allow it. And if they allow it, then every other team is suddenly chasing something they don't yet understand. And that is the worst position to be in. Because you cannot copy what you cannot explain. And right now, that's exactly where the grid stands. Watching, waiting, trying to figure out a car that doesn't behave like the others. A car that looks too stable, too efficient, too complete. So now, everything comes down to one final question. Not whether Mercedes is fast, not whether they are dominant, but whether what we are seeing is the future of Formula One, or something the sport will decide it cannot allow to continue.